Yes. This tutorial is going to be an experiment to see what happens if I start talking about C++. It's also an experiment because I've had a few beers and I want to see if I can still do this. So, the thing about C++ is it's a very complicated language. There's no way I'm going to be able to teach you guys all of C++. If I do, I'm going to have a separate series for it. However, it's far more used than C for game programming, and this is for obvious reasons. Mainly because you guys have seen me start to put globals everywhere because those are convenient, but they're frowned upon in programming. And in C++, they're really frowned upon. So I want to show you guys just a very simple tutorial on how to migrate my previous video's code, Contro, C code from C to C++. And I'm only going to cover just the aspects of C++ that are kind of like super noob, getting into the language for the first time. And the thing that's fun about C++ is because it's backwards compatible with C, you can learn only as much as you want to at a time with C++ and fall back on C for things that you don't understand yet. And we're definitely going to do that with this tutorial. So this is Contro from the hell? Just hold on, technical difficulties here. This is Contro from the last video. It's just a machine gun shooting tutorial. And it has some C functions and some C structures and all the stuff I've taught you about thus far. What we're going to do is we're going to create a new C++ document, and we are going to take all of Contro and put it in a C++ file instead, and take advantage of C++'s classes to do this. I'm going to go ahead and comment here that this version of Espresso C is still not on the App Store yet. It's version 1.1. Apple's having a problem getting this approved, and they suck at getting apps approved. So whenever this finally gets approved, you'll be able to create C++ files in Espresso C. However, disclaimer, it's an add-on, it's an in-app purchase, so it's not part of Espresso C's main functionality. You add it on. Anyway, so here's a C++ file. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and delete all this and pick from the code snippet library on the right. I have this convenient little C++, if I can find it, STL event loop, which has a lot of the stuff we're going to need to start with. And this is the stuff that I want to kind of teach you guys about. So for starters, the quickest way I can talk about C++ without really getting like too into it, because I really don't want to right now, is that C++ adds classes to C. And a class you can think of as a struct, with the major difference that it has member functions inside of it or methods inside of it. So you can think of it as a structure with its own functions. And the neat thing about that is if you have a class turned to a structure like this man class here, you can add functions to the class, and those functions can access the properties in the class, sometimes called data members, just straight up without having to do, like struct dot to get at those things, which is really useful. It takes a hell of a lot of the complexity, or the, I guess you can say, just exploded nature of C away, and allows you to kind of take what would be a global and just put it inside a class and work with it. A lot of concepts here, so what I'm going to do is just quickly walk you through this C++ snippet, and then we're going to bring Contro into it if I can before too much time passes. So the first things first is classes. The major difference is instead of struct, you just put class instead, and you can add functions to it the same way you can add variables, and those functions exist. There's two special functions. One's called the Constructor, which has the exact same name of the class without a return type. Notice there's no void here, and some parens. And the Constructor is ran every single time you declare an instance of that class type, and the Constructor will initialize the values, kind of give them default values for you. And the other special type of function is called a Destructor, which is just a tilde in front of the same name of the class. And the destructor is ran the minute the class goes out of scope. So you can think of it as like right before the object instance goes away, the destructor's ran. It's kind of a cleanup, and it's optional. So is the constructor, actually. You don't need to put it there. So basically what I've done is I took the entire freaking program and put it inside a game loop class. So here's main. Main just creates a game loop, and it uses the new keyword, which is a way to dynamically allocate an instance of a class. You can think of it kind of like malloc for C++. And it uses that game loop instance. Basically, all you have to do inside main is I declare a game loop. I create it. I call run, which is a method or a member function inside game loop. And then I delete it, which results in the destructor getting called. Apparently, I don't know how to spell destructor. I fixed it. So now, game loop has some methods in it. Here's the constructor. This is the stuff that used to be right inside main to initialize STL. Stuff you've seen before. As you can see, everything inside here is C. C++ and C are so familiar that you can just straight use C inside C++. Here's the destructor. Runs all the cleanup stuff that used to be at the end of main. Here's process events. Stuff you've all seen before. Here's do render and update logic. They're all methods you've seen before. The only difference is that these methods can access the properties inside, which used to be globals or passed in as arguments of the class. So every game loop has a window, a renderer, a man, and a boolean called done. And the methods can access those things freely without having to put dot or any kind of structure reference in front of them. So like I said, it's really convenient, and you can think of it as this game loop class is encapsulates a special C++ word thrown around a lot. It's encapsulating this functionality, and it's in there. So it's typical, not always, that members or properties of a class are private, and methods are typically public. If you get lazy like I did up here, you can make the properties themselves public, but sometimes that's considered frowned upon, breaking encapsulation and so forth. I don't care about that right now. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this and we're just going to bring Contro into it. So what did Contro have? It had a bunch of stuff in here in the man struct. So I'm just going to copy all that stuff from C version of Contro into, I'm going to save this file. Where the heck is Contro at? Contro.cpp, that's the extension for C++. And we have the man struct inside here with all of the new stuff that I've added for all of its state. I'm going to leave the man struct or class very simple and leave everything public and focus on the game loop as kind of the encapsulating main class that's going to follow things more strictly. So the first thing I notice is the default position of man initializing x, y, and dy and dx. I need to initialize some more stuff in here. dy should be 0 for sure. Life should start out. What did I start out life? Man, come on. Apparently I didn't use life at all. I bet you I didn't use name either. Well, I definitely feel like current sprite should be initialized to 0. These are stupid. I'm deleting these. And some other things like walking, facing left. These actually could be upgraded to bools in C++, but I don't want to do that right now. Shooting, visible 1. He's definitely alive. Sheet texture, I'm going to leave that alone. As a matter of fact, I'm going to allow a string argument to the man to give us the sheet texture file name as an argument, and we're going to use that to initialize the sheet texture. And then on destruction, we're going to free, I don't think it's called free texture or something. We're going to free the sheet texture. Let's see if that was right. Oh, it's destroy texture. Let's just go ahead and do that. So let me just go ahead and see here how many times, or how I create the sheet texture. Looks like this was it. Take a sheet. So There is a C++ variant of printf that I don't want to get into right now. Basically what I do is just create the sheet texture based off of the input file name. And just to be 100% safe, I'd like to start the sheet texture out as null, and I want to make sure that I don't destroy it unless it was specifically allocated. This is important. Oh god, many things went wrong. Img load has a problem. Let's get all the header files that I had from Contro. Oops, it needs the renderer. I can understand why it would. It's looking good. So I got the man structure basically ready to go. Now here's the game loop structure. So I'm going to skip to the main function over to the C code for Contro. And I can see that there's some things that are different immediately between the two. For starters, I have some global textures that I had here, like the bullets and stuff, and the enemy. I'm going to throw all of these into the game loop as data members at the bottom, or properties. That's really annoying. Turn that off. That covers that. And I'm going to initialize these things in the constructor of the game loop, if I can find it. So we got the renderer, we got the logical size, which I don't think I did here, which I want to do here. Sheet, that's part of man. Bad man sheet, that's part of enemy. The background and the bullet are parts of the game itself. Something tells me that I'm going to get annoyed doing this, really. A board is kind of like a lazy man's exception, just a way to get the program to just quit because I can't return from a constructor to make the program fail. I could throw an exception, but I don't want to do that right now, so I'm just calling abort if something goes wrong. Okay, so is that good enough to get this thing to not have problems? I thought... Okay, that's the error I actually expect to see, and I'll explain that in a second. So the idea with data members is, unlike globals, you can't initialize them outright. So this bullets array has to be initialized in the constructor, which is pretty easy to do. And I actually believe that I don't have max bullets defined over here, so let's just get max bullets over here. A lot of times when you're in C++ land, people don't sharp define. Usually they'll do static const int, or static const whatever, and set it equal to the variable like that. And if it has to do with the class, a lot of times they'll actually put it directly inside the class like this. So now it can only be used inside man, which is kind of a way to really just prevent usage of globals at all. In C++, if you need to use a global, you're probably doing it wrong. Let's put it that way. And I put this in the wrong freaking class. Let's get this over into the game loop. So there's the game loop. And in the game loop, I want to initialize the bullets array. 0, I less than max bullets, I plus plus. I hope this was just called bullets. Bullets equals null. For the sake of laziness, I'm going to leave bullets as a struct. Just because you're in C++ doesn't mean there's no reason to use structs. Very simple things like bullet sometimes can just remain as a struct, and maybe in a later lesson I'll upgrade it to a class and show you what that entails. The major difference between struct and class in C++ is that structs are public by default, and classes have private scope by default. Private, I guess you can say, access pattern. Where was I here? So I got the bullets all initialized. There's going to be one error here. The reason why I'm ignoring this error is basically this thing's expecting me to call the proper constructor for the man classes that have been declared here, mainly enemy and the man. So I have two of them. I have man and enemy, and these both can't just be blindly initialized. They need two arguments now, which are basically the renderer and the sheet texture file name. I want to defer the initialization of these objects until I'm ready, so I'm going to make them pointers so I can pick when to initialize them and when to deinitialize them, and that makes things a lot easier for me because now all I have to do is when I want to initialize man, I can basically say man equals new man, pass those two things in, the renderer and the file name. I believe this was just called sheet.ping. What was the enemy called? Batman sheet. Enemy equals, you can already see how much cleaner this is than C, which is why some people prefer to use it. Now we have those things, and since they've been dynamically allocated, new is a form of dynamic allocation, we need to delete them on destruction. Now we probably won't get as many errors at least, except for that crap. So we have man set up. Couple things for starters. The initial position of man should still be set up, and the initial position of the enemy should still be set up. So I'm just going to kind of grab these from the C code and pick what we need to initialize. We need the X, we need the Y. This is a perfect time to show you guys what methods can do for you. So here's the man class. We're going to add a special method here called setPosition. The method can be used to supply arguments to do things that help you out, or helper methods for dealing with the things in the class. You have to keep saying object.this, object.that in C++, and you're accessing just data members, probably you're better off to just create a method. So I'm just going to go ahead and say x equals px, y equals py, and now we have set position. And now over here I can just say man set position, not positoin, 50, 0. Now I can do setters for all these things, but this is a freaking YouTube tutorial and I don't feel like having this run 30 minutes long just to show you guys that. So you get the idea. Like I said, this isn't the best way to use C++, but whatever. The enemy. Enemy set man set position to 50, 60. All the other things. Dot gets replaced with this. Put that. Replace and find. There. I do that sometimes to save time. I think I started alive as 1 by default in the constructor, so some of this isn't necessary. For starters, that's not necessary. This isn't necessary. This isn't necessary. This isn't necessary. This isn't necessary. And I missed one. This isn't necessary. Visible 1. Don't I have something called alive? Yeah, screw that up. Yeah, there's 1. All right, come on. So things happened. This is now expecting a pointer access to this. As a matter of fact, none of this means anything anymore because I have a new method here which was called process events, I believe. And these no longer need arguments because they can go inside the class and essentially access their own, since it's inside the class, access my own data members. So I'm just going to go ahead and replace the C++ codes, templates, if I can find it, process events method with my own. And hope that everything just kind of works. Oh my god, do I not feel like putting spaces in front of all this. That is not going to be okay. This is called No Way in Hell am I going to do this. I'm cheating here. Yeah. Problem solved. How in the hell... Oh. The stupid things indent tab width. I don't know any of this right now. Should be... Aha! I pasted it in the wrong file again. Alright, alright. That's better. Alright, text wrangler's staying open in case I need it. What have I done? I've got this. It's going to have a problem with something called global time. What was global time? It was a global... No! Okay, global time. It's never too late for global time. Here's global time. Can't initialize it to 0, but I can up here in the constructor. Always think of your constructor as a constructor. Okay. Global time. What else is the problem? Add bullet. Add bullet needs to be added. Add bullet, once again, can become a member of the game loop, member function, or method. One annoying thing about C++ is there's a stupid name for everything, and they're always confusing. But that's okay. Once again, bring back text wrangler to indent, because I need to implement that for Espresso C. I thought I told you. No, okay. Add bullet has something about bullets. Malloc. Now, there's no rule that says you can't use malloc just because you're in C++, especially if the thing you're mallocing is a struct. Don't ever malloc a class. You can malloc a struct. It has to do with the way that new handles calls to constructors, and malloc is more of a low-level memory management kind of thing. It does have a problem, though, that I'm assigning a bullet from an incompatible type void. I have to do a typecast because C++ is more naggy about the types you're using. This thing just expects some things. Now we're going to go ahead and, just like I pasted in the process events, we're going to paste in the doRender method, so it can just replace the old one. Don't have a problem with that. Really? Did I just copy again? doRender. Do it. doRender comes around. Did I screw that up? Yes. Okay. Indented properly. These don't need to be passed. All I need now is to change. Remember how I had dot before in pointer otherwise because of my inconsistencies of using one for the other? Not the case in this. I think in a further lesson, I'm going to clean up the usage of these man class data members directly from this code in another lesson to clean up the C++ stuff. What is this thing talking about? Oh, more C++ crap. C++ is a stronger typed language, so if you try to pass in a float as an int, you'll get an error. A quite annoying one at that. Same thing with this, no matching function call for render copy x. Actually, I do feel like I did something kind of stupid here. Let me see if I can figure out what it is. Maybe another drink of beer will help. All right. It says there's no matching function call to render copy x. Candidate not viable, no known conversion from int to render flip for separate argument. I remember seeing this before. And I think all you have to do is cast this to the special type it was getting. Or cast it to int. Ha! It's fixed. Like I said, C++ is a strong typed language, so if you pass any type that's not exactly what it's expecting, you have to put the type it's expecting in parens before the argument that's passed in, called a typecast, to get it to shut the hell up. Erect. It needs the same thing I had before here. casting int because I'm passing floats in here. This, when you cast a float to an int, it will truncate the int, meaning if it's 0.9, you'll get 0. If it's 0.2, you'll get 0. So you will, it won't round it. Let's put it that way. Just fair warning there. We actually got it to freaking show a picture, so we're getting there. Now what I'm going to go ahead and do is bring in update logic, which is the update logic function. Do I even have one of those here? I do. So we're going to replace the empty update logic with the full of life update logic from Contro.c. Here comes update logic. I bet it's just going to work. Well, maybe not. Let's just go ahead and fix that. You know, every single time you see enemy dot, enemy arrow, leave me alone forever. All right. Remove bullet. We never added that. Now, did we? Remove bullet is a method that we're going to add that removes the bullet. And that's going to be another method that we add to the game loop class. So you guys are noticing that everything that was a global function or a global variable in the C code in the little module of Contro is becoming a method or a data member in the class. And that's the idea of encapsulation in C++, is you can take a bunch of code and put it inside a class and stop it from polluting the global namespace of your program. There it is. I like to categorize things in order, so I put remove bullet right after add bullet so I don't get lost. Too few arguments to something. Update logic expects man passed because I didn't remove that argument like I was supposed to. It's not necessary anymore. You'll also notice the C++ things have not nearly as many arguments. Guys, we're done. We're friggin' done. It works. There's not a single thing I need to paste in. We've got it all in here. So now, here's Contro in C++. Everything that was inside the C code is now inside a class. Tomorrow, after I upload this YouTube tutorial, I will upload this code as well for you guys to reference and play with. Thanks for watching. See you next time.